So I said we're transitioning this week to discussing not Epictetus, but Laozi. Who is Laozi? Sometimes he's called, if you want to call him Laozi, that's fine. All right, sometimes Laozi, Lao Tzu, all those things are fine, I suppose. Laozi. There's very little historical information about Laozi. Some people are questioning his actual existence at all, because there doesn't seem to be any writings that say that he even existed, but he would have been a contemporary of Kongzi, purportedly. And Laozi is considered the founder of course, this is when we put things nice and tidy, and things don't always add up quite tightly in the actual historical record. He's considered the founder of Taoism. What's Taoism? I'm not looking for specifics, but at least in generalities, what is Taoism? I like the honest shrug. I'm not being sarcastic. Has anyone heard of Taoism before? I guarantee you've seen Taoistic paraphernalia. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, if certain religions are associated with certain symbols, Christianity, what symbol comes to mind? I can think two. The cross. And the ichthys, which is a fish. Okay, so those are the two that come to mind. Judaism, what comes to mind?
Star of David.
Yeah, it's almost like emojis for religions, right? Okay, seriously. All right, Star of David. Islam, crescent moon and the full moon. Okay, this one you know. You probably call it the wrong thing. Yes? Anybody do Taekwondo when they were a kid? All right, and even if you didn't, you've seen this one before. Sometimes it's got little extra circles. It's like two koi fish in a battle. No, it isn't. What is the symbol called? Nobody say yin yang, because it's not. Therein lies the frustration. No, it represents the concepts of yin and yang, which we'll probably get into maybe next time. This is the Tai Chi. Okay, you hear that Tai Chi in there? Anybody heard of Tai Chi before? Okay, that's the Tai Chi. So we'll get to that. But that's, I guess you could say that's the symbol associated with Taoism. Okay, why is it on a little bunch of karate uniforms for little kids? Gi. Why is that? So you've seen it before, yes? What does it mean?
A balance.
Okay, balance. I like that. Anything else? I'm looking for colloquial meaning here. Like you've seen the symbol of the, and I think balance is good. Some people seem to import some Zoroastrian notions into there, or Manichaean ones, where it's good and there's good and evil in everything. Has nothing to do with good and evil. Nothing. Maybe incidentally, perhaps, but it's not showing some. That's a very Zoroastrian Manichaean way of looking at things. Like here's all powerful good over here and all powerful evil over here. Light side, dark side. Okay, that kind of stuff. That's that kind of linear opposition there. It's a very, if I may, Near Eastern way and Western way of looking at things. I think with origins in the Near East, not the Far East. So Taoism, it's considered one of the world's major religions. Okay, but there's different species of it. As there's different species of many religions. Okay, we could talk about, the Russian Orthodox Church is not what the Baptists are doing down the road. Maybe they're all Christians, but I'd say what we're talking about here is quite dissimilar. There are ways we can say that they fit into the same apparatus, but it's not the same exact thing. So there are different species of Taoism. Some are more philosophical, some are more religious and involve practice. In fact, in the Middle Ages, this Taoism mixes with certain kinds of Confucianism and becomes something known as Neo-Confucianism in English. Okay, what is that? It's Taoism plus. Well, why do they call it Neo-Taoism? Because that's a different thing that I don't want to get into here. But for our purposes, this is what Laozi writes in the Tao Te Ching, which is considered one of the principal texts of Taoism. It's the original text. But I don't know if we even call Laozi, I don't know if we even call him a Taoist, exactly, in the modern sense. Okay, he's not lighting candles, he's not doing some of the more religious practice things. It's more perspective that I think we can call Taoist. Now, other Taoist authors, even in that same book, Zhuangzi, who we're going to look at too, would be considered in the Taoist tradition. I'm not sure he and Laozi would agree on too much. But what I want to do here is mainly look at perspective. What is the Taoist principle? And I want to look primarily at the text, the Tao Te Ching. Well, what does that mean? And I think I went over this a little bit. Let's break that down. The title. And sometimes you'll see this. There's two systems of transliterating Chinese. This is Pinyin, and then there's Wei Giles will do things like this. So if you see it written out like this, it's the same thing. Okay, there's two ways of transliterating for some reason in Chinese. But this means, let's talk about the concept of it. There's the Tao in Taoism. There's three terms here. Tao means Wei. Dai means virtue. And Qing means classic text. Actually, the text is implied. It means classic. So what does Tao Te Ching mean? The classic way of virtue. Now that, when you translate the Greek arete into Chinese today, you will find that it's dai. Okay? What I have here is either de or te, depending on what you want to look at it, how you want to look at it. This is the same, this is a synonym. Now the Chinese concept of virtue is a little bit different than the Greek one. And then Dao, the concept of the way. Now, actually, if you go back and take a look at Kangzi again, you'll notice he actually says in English, it talks about the way, capital W, a few times. And the Chinese word there is Dao. All right, so it's based on a little bit of what Kangzi was saying, but it's a little bit of a different spin on it. So what is Taoism all about? I think the best place to start is the opening line of the Laozi, which if you have the physical text, and there's some prefatory material on Laozi and the Tao Te Ching as well, which I recommend. I think that's the case for all the authors. If you have the physical text, it's 163. And it says, Dao ke Dao, Fei Cheng Dao, Ming ke Ming, Fei Cheng Ming. Which can be translated a multitude of ways. In fact, if you look at the translation of the Tao Te Ching, you will find that it's there's probably, if you just type it in on Amazon, you'll probably get 500 different translations, some of which are terrible. So I'm going to do, I like what Ivanhoe and Van Noorden have done here, but let's break this down. It says this: a way that can be followed is not a constant way. A name that can be named is not a constant name. So again, Dao ke Dao. All right, Dao that the Dao that does the Daoing. The way when you talk about the way, that's literally what that means. The way when you talk about the way, it's not the way. I was trying to avoid it, but you guys did not just pop it in my head. Do you know the way? All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and get it out of the way now. I did it twice. Okay. But then further, it says the name that can be named. It's got that, the Chinese there is Ming. Ming ke Ming. Okay? Same thing as the Zhang Ming. Remember the rectification of names? It's the same Chinese word, Ming, there. What on earth does this mean? Just the opening line. A way that can be followed is not a constant way. A name that can be named is not the constant name. This is talking about, this is saying this, when we're talking about describing ultimate reality, big metaphysical stuff, the deep questions. The meaning here is that our linguistic descriptions only go so far. Have you ever, just think about this pragmatically, or practically, I should say. Have you ever been in a situation where words were insufficient to describe? That's what it's saying. You're talking about the way? You're not talking about the way. You're doing the best you can, but you're not grasping at all of it. How many of us, can we say the word infinity? Can we understand it as a concept? Like, if I say here's what I mean by that. If I say the word infinity, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, now you don't have to be a mathematician. Okay, now if you start to get into are some infinities bigger than others? Countable? Yes. I don't want to do that today. I don't want to hurt you. But yeah, some infinities are bigger than others. Say the set of all prime numbers, not set of prime numbers, that's not, that's infinite, versus the set of all integers. One's bigger. It's got more stuff in it, but somehow they're both infinite. So infinity, we at least get the concept. If I say infinity, you get it, even if you don't understand it fully. Yes? That's what I mean by that. Okay, you can be a little kid and recognize a triangle without knowing that all the angles add up to 180 degrees, right? You can go, it's got 3 sides, it's a triangle. You don't have to know all the innards of it. So you can grasp something without fully grasping it and still be knowledgeable. That's what he's saying here. Now, this is an important starting point. Already what he's saying is, this is almost anticipating certain elements of 20th century philosophy of language. Language only gets you so far. Descriptions are only so good. I think of Wittgenstein. Our linguistic descriptions are almost kind of pictures of what's going on. They're not what's going on. The words are doing the best we can. Okay, to give you another example, is one I think of coming from Hillary Putnam. Let's say if I turn on the faucet, what substance is going to pour out?
Water.
Hopefully. Okay, what is water? Thank you. Okay. Which is not dihydrogen monoxide, it would be oxidane. Help me, scientists. Okay. Oxidane, right, is a chemical substance now, which is H2O. That's what that would be. Did people know that before modern chemistry theory, that water was comprised of H2O? Not a trick question. No, unless there was time travel involved, which there was not. Now, does that mean, say, ancient people, when they're looking at the ocean, hey, look at all that water. You don't know what H2O is. How could you possibly say it's water? Are they wrong when they look at it, not knowing that? No. This is another example of just because you don't know all the innards of something doesn't mean you don't know something. Okay? In terms of ascription. We can get into more weird stuff there that I don't want to. But language is only gets you so far. So especially when you're talking about ways and names. What is the way? That way. What is the way? The way is kind of how things are. Well, how are things? What things? Well, let me continue the passage because I think we can spend so much unpacking just this one alone. I'm going to get into some others that are a little bit more metaphysical. Well, this one probably takes the cake for metaphysical, but it keeps going. Nameless. Okay, the thing we're talking about, you can't name it. You can't really describe it. When you're talking about, again, this is the point. When you're talking about the way, you're not really talking about the way exactly. you're not quite getting the name down exactly what it is, you can't put it into a jar and contain it. Just like infinity. Like, again, you can get it as a concept, you can get it without fully grasping it. Named, on the other hand, when we do talk about it, it's the mother of the myriad creatures. So there's a sense in which the Tao has metaphysical implications. I've used that word a couple times. I want to make sure it's clear. When I say metaphysical, I do not mean that special section of the bookstore that sells incense and stuff about witches, Wicca specifically. If you go, it might be labeled metaphysics. That's not the kind of metaphysics I'm talking about. What is metaphysics? I've talked about a couple of words before. Metaphysics is really talking about the structure of reality, the underlying structure. Physics is when you talk about what made that happen. Gravity, right? You take the mass of two objects over the distance between them. There's your gravity force, right? Metaphysics is, why does gravity work in the first place? What conditions are there that cause the physical universe to have the laws it has? Now we're not talking about physics anymore, we're talking about metaphysics. Okay? It does not mean superphysics. The reason why it has that name is kind of weird, but it has to do with where that book is placed in Aristotle's canon, from which the name comes from. Literally, it means after physics. But metaphysical questions are questions about reality itself. Why does reality work in this way? So when I say that the Tao is a metaphysical concept, what I mean by that is I'm saying this Tao, this thing, has a kind of, it's responsible for the universe. Kind of like theists might say, God is responsible for the universe. I don't mean responsible like a babysitter. Check, you guys okay, universe? But responsible in the sense of there's kind of a ideology there, or causal necessity. This is why that's there. Same thing with Aristotle's theos, or God. This is the fundamental principle. Much like the logos to the Stoics. This is the fundamental principle. They would use the word, in Latin, principium, in Greek, arche. This is that's where we get our word archaeology. It's the fundament, the fulcrum of all that weight. The Tao is the fulcrum of the universe. Everything's resting on it. Everything comes from it. Then we are followed with some imperatives. And so, always eliminate desires in order to observe its mysteries. Pay attention to it. Always have desires in order to observe its manifestations. Watch for it. What's it? We'll get to that. These two come forth in unity but diverge in name. Their unity is known as an enigma. Within this enigma is yet a deeper enigma, the gate of all mysteries. Okay. What does that mean? That sounds confusing. Again, I'm reminded of the words of Scalia, all right, where he says Kongsi is nothing but, fortune cookie wisdom. Yeah, if you're not trying hard, Antonin, what is this saying? There's something going on that is universal. All you have to do is pay attention to it. Okay, what's the it? Well, the way, the Tao. Again, when you start talking about it, you're not really talking about it anymore. Tao, okay, Tao. Okay? But what does that look like? Well, what do you want to look at? Well, and this is why the Taoists were actually responsible for most of Chinese science. I know there's an Occidental tendency, that means that's a spicy word for Western. There's an Occidental tendency to think that any kind of investigation of nature, any kind of science of any kind, has to be relegated to the Western world. There was Taoist science, getting at the world and understanding it. Why? Why did the Taoists have science? It wasn't the same thing as Western science. Why did the Taoists have science? Because they wanted to look at the world, pay attention to it. Okay? When you start paying attention to the world, you start figuring things out. That's something that the West did too. That started to happen. The so-called scientific revolution, I think that's overstating it a bit, followed various movements, the Protestant Reformations, following the Renaissance. I'm going to couch all those in the plural. Okay, movements where, hey, let's actually observe things rather than just talking about them. That's what Aristotle will do. Well, you can just talk about things, in the room here. Now, Aristotle did some observations, but a lot of his conclusions he reached through speculation. That's not the way we think of science working anymore, in the same kind of way, at least experimental science. The Taoists were all about looking at the world. You want to know what the Tao is? Look around. Look especially at nature. Look at chapter 2, same page, 163. Everyone in the world knows that when the beautiful strives to be beautiful, it is repulsive. Everyone knows that when the good strives to be good, it is no good. This is actually analogous to something Laozi said, right? If you're going to have that filial piety, love your dad, should it be something that you simply do as an action? Is that sufficient for your role in the Zhang Ming? What should your role to your parents be? What does the filial piety look like? Does that mean you just love, honor, respect them, whatever? Do what they say just because? Remember, there has to be a volition there as well. Not just do it, want to do it. Okay, Laozi is saying something similar here. Okay, in that if you're trying to be good, if you're striving after it, you're doing it wrong. Beauty, striving after it, you're doing it wrong. Beauty is. It doesn't aspire to be. Goodness is. It does not aspire to be. And this brings us to an accord with nature. To have and to lack generate each other. Now we're getting at this kind of conceptualization. Now, granted, this symbol is not invented until like 1,500 years later. And this is the kid version of the actual one. I'll talk about that later. Difficult and easy give form to each other. Long and short offset each other. High and low incline into each other. Note and rhythm harmonize with each other. Before and after follow each other. What it's saying here is these are not opposites per se. These are, we can call them complements. Remember complementary colors? Elementary school, art class, green and red. Yes, they go well together. Orange and close. Purple. What's the other one?
Oh, yellow and purple.
Huh? Orange and purple, green and red.
Yellow and blue.
Wait, yellow, purple, orange, blue.
Let's go to the Etheridge Center and learn a little bit about art. All right, now just look up the color wheel. All right, so there are, well, what I mean by this is simply this. Remember there's like 3 primary colors? Right, red, yellow, blue. And if you take 2 and mix them, okay, say red and blue, you get purple. The one that's left, the one by itself, the one that's alone, that's its complement. So green and red go well together. Clemson is complementary colors, I guess. Okay. Just think about that for now. All right, there's complements. Are they opposites? Is orange the opposite of, oh my gosh, I can't think either. Help me. Okay, purple, yeah, thank you. I lost it. I lost the plot. Are they opposites of each other? No. They're not opposites, they're complements. Now, again, complement in the sense of they go together, not complement in the sense of, well, and so do you. Okay? All these, here's a list. All these things can be ascribed to yin and yang, by the way, which are concepts I want to go more into next time. But these are the kinds of things. Notice it's not good and evil. Again, that's importing some stuff from, I think, Manichaeism and Zoroastrianism, which are ancient. Both have ancient Persian origins, but make their way into Gnosticism and then sometimes trickle into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Here are the complements. Difficult and easy. Again, not good and evil, difficult and easy. Long and short, high and low. Note and rhythm. Before and after. Complements go together. And kind of what this symbol, again, this symbol comes way, way later. But what this symbol is actually saying is it's kind of like a diagram of the universe. Here's everything. And everything had all the complements in the universe. All the things that go together, they're in the universe. That's all it's saying. This symbol. You know, there's different, this line has a meaning, this line on the outside. I don't want to get into that just yet. And I don't think it's really for our purpose here. A little too technical, but you can look it up. Tai Chi 2. All these things fit together. Without trying. If I turn the page and look at 164, the top of 164, it says this. This is why, so following this list of here's these complements, this is why the sages abide in the business of non-action. Non-action. What is that? You'll notice the Chinese down there, Wu Wei. In fact, I'll go ahead and put it up here. What is the sage all about? Wu Wei. Literally, it means not doing. Wu is one. It means just like not. No. Wei is a kind of doing. And listen, this is why the sages abide in the business of non-action and practice the teaching that is without words. They work with the myriad creatures and turn none away. They produce without possessing. They act with no expectation of reward. When their work is done, they do not linger, and by not lingering, merit never deserts them. Now, I want to focus on that first line on page 164. The sages abide in the business of non-action. What do you suppose non-action is? So, just superficially, that kind of sounds like Stoicism. Well, how? Should remember the words of Epictetus. Don't so much see to want events to happen as you want them to happen, but what? Expect events to happen as they happen. What will you be? Content. In this mode, how are you content? Do without doing. Okay. And this is not this is not a Buddhist koan. Okay, that is a puzzle that can't be solved. What's the sound of one hand clapping? That's not the question being asked here. I think we can take this literally. What do we mean by do without doing? Well, again, consider nature. Like if we go out, and this is the focus here. The Tao said, look around. Just look around. What do you see? Okay, not in here. This is Foucault comes to mind. Is it any wonder schools resemble prisons? Right. I mean, this windowless cinder block room. But if we were to go outside into the world, even into the parking lot there. Okay, I'm not calling for a field trip. Just go, when you leave, consider this. You'll see an abundance of, I see them, there's green, living things. And even just nature itself. Anybody ever tried to plant a garden? No, it's not operative word that was tried. Okay, my tomatoes never work. I don't know what it is. I think it's the sandy soil here. But we can talk about plants thriving. But the trees out there, are they trying to be trees? Did the tree wake up today? Oh, I gotta get myself together. I'm not me before my coffee. Don't talk to me. Okay? Does the tree do that? Any tree out there? No. Nevertheless, it is. How does it know what to do? So back when it was, even before it was a young sapling, when it was a seed of some kind, okay, whether it be evergreen or deciduous, I don't care. Okay, when it was a seed, how did it know what to do? I'm using know there loosely. Thomas Aquinas talks about this in Summa theologiae. Okay, there's a final cause that must have been imported by God. Okay, well, theists can believe that, that's fine. How does nature know what to do?
DNA?
Well, okay, all right. Now there's life, right? DNA. It's almost like a program, right? Okay, copy this, please. And occasionally you make some mistakes, and lo, there's your evolution for you. Okay, well, oh, oops, we didn't mean to copy that. You now no longer have a tail. Okay.
I would just say like instinct. I would just say instinct because it kind of just.
Okay. Well, I think that explains organic stuff too, right? The combination of those things. Sure, that's great. Now, just based on naive observation, okay? How does the sun know to go where it goes? Now, notice I said naive observation. Okay, by that I mean I am fully committed to the Copernican model of the solar system. But the ancients were not idiots. If you stand outside, what does it look like the sun is doing? It's moving around us. That's not stupid. It makes complete sense. The only reason people Copernicus discovered it that it was stupid is what the planets are doing, making little cursive lines in the sky, doesn't make any sense if that's true. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, not, can you believe they believe that? Give him a break, okay? And Kepler's the one who really figured it out, frankly, or ironed it out. But how does the sun know what to do? Or in this case, let's go full Copernican, assuming that we know this. But this is not something you could just observe unassisted, okay? How does the Earth know to go around the sun in 365.25 days?
It's not really doing anything.
Yeah, all right. It orbits. All right. The thing that boggles my mind is tidal locking with the moon. Okay? Does the moon spin? I'm not asking, does the moon orbit the Earth? Yes. Does it rotate as it does so? No. That's what you notice when you look at the moon, the phases of the moon, it's not spinning, it's just, hey, how are you doing? Okay? Like Pippi Longstocking just sitting there waiting for you. Hi, what are you going to do now? Okay? So yeah, literally, it's locked with the gravity of the Earth going, hey, I'm the moon. That's what it does. That's why it doesn't spin. How does it know to do that? It just happens. The gravity happens to be just right enough that the moon doesn't spin. It always has the same face. It's not the dark side of the moon either. It gets sunlight too. Okay? Just we don't see that happening to it on the surface of the Earth. How does it know what to do? How do the planets know what to do? Know what to do. Okay? I'm not saying that they have brains or minds. That's not my intention. But how does nature know what to do? Now, you mentioned gravity. Cool. Again, that one. Why does that work? Here's the formula for gravity. That's not me, that's Newton, okay? Which you'll find that, you know Newton's 3 laws of motion, right? This one kind of, well, it works kind of until you Einstein. Some gravities are different than others, okay? Namely Venus and Uranus, I'm committed to that. Okay, Uranus and Venus show some problems, and their discoveries of why they orbit the way they do indicate problems that formula doesn't always work. For everyday stuff, it does. You want to figure out why people pass out in an airplane? That works great. You want to figure out why Mercury doesn't have a completely circular orbit around the sun? You need to do something else, namely look at theories of relativity. Even in those cases, how does gravity know how to behave certain things? And when there's a lot of gravity going on, it completely messes with space-time and warps it. Okay, that's Einstein in a sentence. But how, even there, does anything in nature know to do what it's supposed to do? DNA makes sense with biological substance. It's not like Aristotle. With life. Right? DNA is the key there. But for inorganic things, how do they know how to perform the laws of physics? All right? All right, something as simple as, You take a base and an acid, you make a little volcano. How do the base and acid, when they come together, know, no, we're supposed to explode now? How do they know what to do? Why does nature move in the way that it does? Without programming, even. This is what the Taoists are stressing, Laozi here. It just does, without even trying. The tree is a tree, without trying to be a tree. Water flows down. The waterfall is not trying to be a waterfall. Oh, people are taking pictures today? Let me be my best. No, the waterfall doesn't do that. Its beauty is. Its sublimeness is. It doesn't aspire to be. What's the corollary? Neither ought you aspire to be you, or to be whatever it is you're after. Okay, this is not, I'm not saying here, your goals, throw them out the window. Your dreams and aspirations. I'm not telling you that. Neither is Lao Tzu, but it's the striving for something, trying to be something, you will never be that thing. You simply must be. Yoda comes to mind. Do or do not. There is no try. Which is kind of a sanitized version of this, but I think if that's familiar to you, I think the notion here is similar. Don't try to be. Be. Well, how do I be? It's subjunctive mood, it works. How do I be? Now keep in mind, this was written at a time during the Chinese Warring States period. Everything's in chaos. HONS was writing at the same time. Okay, there's no China as such. There are Chinas. Everyone's fighting each other. It's filled with violence. This is, again, following the fall of the earliest dynasties. But for all the human chaos around us, nature, just looking at it, gives us quite a respite, doesn't it? It's calm. And it is. Again, if you ever watch, I don't know, something on the Nature Channel where, you can see, oh, yeah, there's violence out there in the world between, animals killing each other and things like that. Sure. But the principle still holds that there is an orderliness that just is without trying to be. Whereas with humans, with us, we're divorced from nature, and he's not saying that because we have technology or something like that. It's not that at all. There's a sense in which humanity is divorced from this inaction. We try so hard to do things. Most of our life is about not the actual, I did it, but I won't say the journey along the way, the friends we met along the way, but so much of our lives are process. So for example, how many years are you going to be at this institution, this school? Most of you, 4, yes? Nope, 2 and I'm on a transfer to Columbia. Fine. Okay, 4 years total, maybe even longer. Okay? And not because of some problem, just I want to take my time. Sure. What's the final result? What are you trying to get here?
Piece of paper.
Yeah, probably you have one of 2 sets of letters on it, probably, a BA or a BS. To start. Maybe you'll get more pieces of paper later and go into great debt. That's where I am. Yeah, that's it. I got it. That's it. I graduated now. But is it just merely that moment of, thank you, I have my receipt now? That's the way you could look at a degree, kind of. But I went through all this process to get there. So much process. Tiny result. So much of our lives are process, and most of those processes are frustrating. Why do most of us work at a job? Well, you want money, right?
So we can afford to live.
Yeah. Think about that. How much a process? Has anybody ever worked a job that you just maybe you didn't like it? I'll just start with you. Yeah. Why did we do that? Why did we put ourselves through that? So we can get the money. To do what with the money? live. Because I'm not going to go into Marxist critiques here, but I think they'd be appropriate of why things work the way they do or they don't. But think about how much effort we put in for the little result. My favorite is the conundrum. Well, I need to work so I can make my car payments, so that then I can use my car to get to work. And there's there's the cycle right there. All right, it's commodity fetishism. That Marx came up anyway. But we do so much. We strive for so much. Even consider us how we learn how to ambulate. That is how we walk. You ever seen a young deer? How long does it take a young deer to walk after being born? Minutes? Right? How long does it take young fish to learn to swim? Seconds? Nemo! How long does it take us human beings to learn how to walk? Months to a year. I've heard everything. Could be 6 months. Could be 18 months. Could be 24 months. It's 2 years. I don't know why we do that with babies. Okay. It takes a long time. And we look really stupid when we do it, too. Because when we're babies, our heads are like a third of our body. We just waddle around trying to get things right, holding on to things. We look absolutely ridiculous. You can quote me on that. Babies look ridiculous. They're adorable, but they look ridiculous. Okay? You look like a bobblehead. The head's a third size of your body. All right. Third of your body. Why does it take us so long? I'm not saying that we're lazy. That's not my point. But I think it's indicative of humanity. We take a long time to do things right. And then we have to strive. Think about all those other animals I mentioned. They just hop right to it. We don't. In many ways, we're kind of evolutionary failures. All right, we happen to come out on top, but are human beings fast animals? Not particularly. Strong animals? No, a gorilla could turn you into paste. Okay, even though they're apes as well. But nevertheless, we're kind of weird, and it takes us a while to do things. But in terms of our notions of happiness and satisfaction and contentedness, most of the problem lies in this. We strive, but we are not. Let me continue. I'm going to move to chapter 4, page 164 still. The way is like an empty vessel. No use could ever fill it up. Vast and deep, it seems to be the ancestor of the myriad creatures. I said that earlier as well. It blunts their sharpness, untangles their tangles, softens their glare, merges with the dust. Deep and clear, it seems to be there. I do not know whose child it is. It is the image of what was before the Lord himself. That Lord there is D. It's related to Tian. That's the overarching deity. I think Lord is an interesting translation. Okay, we'll just say the divine. So there's something divine about this. And everything proceeds from it. So there's the doubt with the way. The myriad creatures, everything else proceeds from it. If you want to find the Tao, where is it? Right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, everywhere. Where is it? Here, there. The Tao's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's kind of like Brahman. It's everywhere. But you have to look for it. And you'll see things work without effort. And so the lesson here, to start, I'm going to get into some more technical stuff next time. But the lesson here, be more like trees and waterfalls. Just do. Sounds like Nike has an incomplete sentence. Right? There's no it. Just do. Just do what? Just be. Be what? Be. It's interesting, in Chinese, there is no word for being. The Greeks are always talking, Heidegger talks about this a lot. The ancient Greeks are always, they're incessant about the concept of being. What does it mean to be a being? How do things be? There's no infinitive verb for to be in Chinese. I think that's part of the reason why Westerners think they're not doing philosophy, because they never talk about being. There's no ontos, there's no ontology. Nevertheless, here, be as an imperative. You, be. Be myself? On the end? No. Be. Well, how do I do it? The way that can be talked about is not the way. Okay, this is something that has to be, you kind of have to unlearn the ways that you've been doing things so far. Okay, because we like things to fit in nice little tidy boxes. What do I need to, excuse me, I'm just dying. What do we need to do? That's what we're constantly after. What do I need to do to accomplish task X? Stop trying so hard. Just be. The doing will follow. In fact, we have a concept called wei wu wei, do without doing. Because the world is in motion. I know I said picture trees and waterfalls. They're not still. They grow. They move. They don't just be in a sense of stillness, but there's motion and fluidity. Do without doing. We'll continue talking about Laozi, which I know I'm easing into this because the Chinese thought's a little bit difficult for the Western mind. But we'll ease into it for next time. Have a good day, everybody. Stay classy out there.